Hey everyone, welcome my channel ASP.NET Core, and today I am going to show you this video tutorial is for AddTransient, AddScoped and AddSingleton service differences. And here we have a simple example to create differences between transient services, scoped and the singleton dependencies. So here we have first of all create an interface for among classes like AddScoped service. Here we have a AddScoped service interface that is one method get task ID, and in the singleton is the same get task ID, and also AddTransient service I have a same method that is get task ID. Okay, so the respective repository is this like get task ID, and task service is actually implemented with the AddTransient service, AddScoped service and singleton service, and among these interfaces have single method that is get task ID. Okay, so in the get task ID we have a ID, and in the task service constructor we have a GUID that is newly created every time when the method is called, so return the ID. Okay, so there is a simple thing you can do. And after that we have a startup method, and in the startup method we initialize the service, or you can say register the service like AddTransient, AddScoped and singleton. There is the respective interfaces name, AddTransient service, AddScoped service, AddSingleton service. There is the repositories name, task service, task service, task service. Okay, now in the controller section, in the home controller, first of all create each service have two requests, or you can say that initialization: transient service 1, transient service 2, scoped service 1 and scoped service 2, and similarly singleton service 1 and singleton service 2 in the home controller section. Also initialize in the home controller constructor like that. There is transient service 1 underscore transient service 1. Now in the index method, you can see that transient service 1 is actually get task ID dot toString. I mean to say that repositories get task ID that is newly generated new GUID every time. So transient 2, there is scoped 1, scoped 2, scoped singleton 1, singleton 2, and respective views are in the index 1, that is service type, first instance task ID, second instance task ID, transient, that is the service type is transient, and in the first instance ID, that is transient 1, transient 2, similarly scoped 1 and scoped 2, singleton 1 and singleton 2. So there is the output. So the differences between among that is, you can see in the transient object, first of all in the transient object are always different. There is the ID, that is the new GUID, there is in the second ID, that is this, that is the difference between both. So the transient object are always different. A new instance is provided to every controller and every service. Focus that. In the scoped, you can say scoped object are the same. Scoped object are the same. You can see scoped objects are the same within a request. This is the request. Like that, when we call again, oops. So here the difference for the other request, but the different across different requests. So here you can see the transient are always different for the newly created instance or the controller or the service. Here that there is the difference between transient among the service request, and in the scoped you can say that always same. There is the same for the single request, but the different request, that is the difference. So scoped object are the same within a request. There is the within a request the same, but different across different request. Okay, in the singleton object are the same for every object and every request. There is the same, and there is the second request, so always same. You can see. So So I think there is the more clarifications. If you need, there is the example. So Singleton, which creates a single instance throughout the application, it creates the instance for first time and reuse the same object in all calls. So only create once. Okay. In the scoped, lifetime service are created once per request within the scope, once per request within the scoped. Okay. It is equivalent to the singleton in the current scope. Equivalent to the current scope. For example, in MVC it creates one instance for each HTTP request, but it uses the same instance in the other call within the same web request. That is the different. Okay. In the transient lifetime service are created each time they are requested. That this lifetime work best for lightweight stateless service. This is lightweight and stateless service. That is the best use for the transient. But scoped is better for every request. Okay, so thank you guys for watching this video and keep watching all other videos which is related to ASP.NET Core.